Good afternoon, everybody. We'll call the work session to order for the 7/12/2022. Going to items of information under Dr. Spence.
Mr. Dimsdale.
Yes, sir. All right, we'll start off with a facilities update. I changed up the format a little bit this time just to give us something to look at as we go through. I took some pictures of some of our sites just to let you see how some progression on the work is going along. So we can go ahead and first is our new Altam Elementary School, and we know that currently that one was occupied last year. It's nearly complete. Right now, we're looking at the playground equipment that is scheduled for delivery on July 18th. I checked on that today, and that is coming in as well. And also, Leaps and Bounds is their equipment is coming in on the same day from the same vendor. There are some humidity issues, and this time of year really makes those more present and observable. So we're having those addressed before we release final payment on that.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
It seems to be, like, I've heard about it for a while, heard things not sticking to the walls and stuff. I mean, I know everybody's humid right now, and I know we have those issues in school. I've never heard it like this before, not in a brand new school. What exactly is going on, and do we need, I mean, is it a big issue? We're gonna have to scrap the thing? I mean, you keep bringing it up like, we got some humidity issues. Well, it's been going on, and
Right.
so what's the real issue, and do you think we're gonna be able to fix it?
Yes,
Okay.
I do think we're going to be able to fix it. It looks like there may have been some foam insulation that was not sprayed, that was supposed to be sprayed by the contractor. Right now, we've done testing to see that the R value insulation has not been affected at all, but we think that some of that may have caused it didn't seal as well as it should have, so there's outside air that's coming in.
Okay.
So right now, we're in the process of holding everybody accountable that was in that process and moving forward to get it corrected. But it should be fixed in the future.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. Our Glynn Academy gym addition, I just threw a couple of pictures up there. You can see that our gymnasium area is, it's closed in now. All the windows are set. We're currently waiting on the floor, and I'll tell you more about that in just a second. That's the picture on the left-hand side. The picture on the right is of the corridor that goes down beside the gym. And those are the the weight room is off to the right there, and then there's a couple other classrooms down on the right-hand side as well. The original date for completion for this project was August. That has been moved back to September, and the reason is because there's been a decision made to change one of the arrangements of a room so that it can be used as a multi-purpose room / wrestling room, and that is going to cause a little bit of a delay. Turns out that's not going to be the biggest delay. Potentially, there may be a larger cause that's going to move it back to September. Last week, we found out that the company Acer Flooring went out of business. And so we had expected the delivery of that floor any day. So as of right now, they're checking with other vendors to see about the flooring coming in. And I don't have any other information right now. They seem to think that the project will still be completed by September. Even with the flooring delay. That's what I know about that at this point. Okay.
Have we paid them anything that we need to get back? I say we, I mean, I don't know if it's through the contractor.
To the
Acer.
flooring company?
Do we paid a deposit?
I don't think so.
Do you know if
I'm not sure either. I can check into that.
Okay.
I mean, it may be a small line item, but if we paid them anything, we need to.
Absolutely.
We can get it back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. St. Simon's Elementary, I was asked by the superintendent to take a picture of the most beautiful spot from a roof in Glynn County School System, which is the new two-story addition at St. Simon's Elementary, and that's your picture on the left-hand side. The picture in the center shows you that all of the brick has been completed on the outside of the building. You're looking at from Demery side, you're looking at the back, and those, that big area in the center there in the middle of the trees, that's where your media center is going to be. It's really beautiful. It's going to have a lot of windows, a lot of light that's going to be going in there. And they have really done a good job of preserving the trees. They take very good care of those trees as this process was going on. So it's going to be a beautiful environment. The right-hand side is the sheetrock that's going up on the interior of the building. Just since I started back in April, to watch this project come along, it's been pretty amazing. So as of right now, they should be starting with air conditioning that environment. I think they said it was next week. So should be able to start to air condition that environment next week and continue work there. Still on schedule for December 22nd. Well, December finish so that January, when the students come back, they would be able to occupy that building. Still a question mark on our main switch gear, which is the electrical gear for the main line coming in, I guess, for the school. And that currently is still, we haven't got it for sure that it's going to make it by November. That's the target date for it to be here. So if that happens, we would have to hold off moving the students over to that building possibly a month or two. All right. Next item. This is Needwood Middle School. Again, my pictures are, when I go in and take a picture, there's no time to clean things up, and there is construction going on, so make sure you take that into account. There on the left, that's the admin office area, and all of the flooring, the painting has been done. The ceiling grid was being placed today, and so that should be ready for reoccupation by Friday. So we'll have administrators moving back into the offices at Needwood Friday, Monday, Tuesday of next week. The picture in the middle is the last hallway to be renovated, and that hallway is nearly complete. You can see that the flooring, the lighting, and the paint has all been done there. And on the right-hand side, that is a view into the media center. Media center flooring has been done, and we'll be moving the furniture back into the media center this next week. Okay, next project. Golden Isles Elementary. This is our project that is due to wrap up, kitchen and everything, for the beginning of the school year. You can see the cafeteria area on the left. That's completed. We are waiting for some stage front items to be delivered, and they may or may not make it before the beginning of school, which shouldn't affect the way that school opening happens, but there may be a little work continuing there. The middle picture is the hallway, and you can see the flooring, the lighting. There are acoustical panels that are also pin boards so that you can put kids' work up and down the hallways there. And the new signs over the doors for each of the teacher doors as well. The right-hand side, I tried to take a picture of a classroom that didn't have too much stuff in there, so you could see the new flooring, the new lighting, the new ceiling grid, and the tack boards and marker boards that have been placed, as well as the Promethean boards. All right, next. Oglethorpe Point Elementary. You're looking again at the finished hallway. There are 3 main hallways on Oglethorpe Point Elementary. All of those hallways currently have all of the lighting, the flooring, the classrooms have been completed, and that's a picture of one of the classrooms on the right-hand side. Still some work going on right now in the admin area, in the gym, and also down the main corridor. But it looks like everything is on schedule for what I'm told, and that Dr. Wiles and her staff should be able to move back into their administrative environment next week as well. So, all right, next project. Satilla Marsh Elementary. As you know, this one's planned for 2023, but the construction documents are currently being developed for this project. We'll report more on that later. All right, next. Our Glynn Academy.
1 second, Mr. Dillon.
Sure.
That is the last project that we have any capital outlay funds coming. We have not applied for anything else. So that is the last. You asked last time, Mr. Mansell. That's the last one that we have to get done. So.
And that is 5 years after that application came in for that
The next
window.
thing we'll do is Glendale Elementary.
our Glynn Academy existing gym, still on track for a 2022 basketball season. The sound system, handrails, exterior lighting, and lighting over the bleachers are tentatively scheduled for completion prior to that basketball season. We have ordered and been working with Stage Front and made a couple of adjustments to be able to get the material in quickly. And I know I mentioned to you guys in the past that we would look at doing things in phases because of the supply chain issue. That issue seems to be more and more real every day. It hasn't turned around and headed in the other direction, but we've been very fortunate that things are moving forward as well as they are. Okay, go ahead. All right, this is our GA Annex, and as you know, I mentioned that we wouldn't be presenting any item until August, but I thought I'd go ahead and show you guys where we are as far as our demolition and our preliminary findings. There hasn't been a determination on exactly where to go at this point, and we'll be meeting probably the end of this week and next week to get something together so that we'll propose solutions on our August meeting on how we'll address this issue. But as you can see on the left-hand side, I wanted to give everyone a view of what it looks like in one of the rooms when it was noticed to begin with. This is the book room, and that gap there underneath the baseboard, that gap is the kind of gap that was noticed in the room that was demolished. But those are two separate areas, but I wanted to show you how that shows up in the room. Once we pulled the flooring off, the timbers are in a good bit better shape than what was expected. I know from the pictures you might think that it looks pretty rough, especially that top right. That's showing some existing termite damage. And the way those things are, they run across the entire length of the room or width of the room up to a point. And I guess they maybe back in 1890, those timbers, they couldn't quite get enough of them to be long enough to do the entire area right there. So they do have them where they're kind of spliced together. And those splicings is where you see right here, that's where some of the damage was the end in those cuts. Overall, though, they're in pretty decent shape. There's some work that's probably going to need to be done with the crawl space. It's almost impossible to get underneath anything. So we'll talk about those plans and we'll present those plans to you in the next meeting. All right. The next item. Our Glynn County Stadium, our Glynn Academy field, and Brunswick High field turf, update on that. Our stadium, we're ready, I think. Mr.
Turf will
Waters?
be here tomorrow and go down Thursday. Process, it's about a 2.5, 3 week process. 70% chance of rain every day. It seems to delay it a little bit, but we should be done the 1st of August.
Right, and that Glynn Academy field has been making progress as well. I'd say it's probably about 2 weeks behind the other one. It's on schedule, but that's the way they're offset. And lots of rock is being delivered right now, and it pretty much looks like the other field did a couple of weeks ago. So we expect that to be running along here pretty quickly soon. And then our Brunswick High field is scheduled to possibly break ground the end of this week, or it could be the beginning of next week. And that field will have all of the resources that work on the field available for it all at the same time. They won't be splitting crews, so it should move along pretty quickly. And also with Glynn Academy, as we were digging, we didn't know what we would uncover, and we were pretty fortunate. Most of our plans and knowledge of people that have been in the school system for a while, we were able to predict all but about 2 or 3 finds, and those 2 or 3 finds were things that we were able to deal with pretty quickly and move ahead. So that's the reason that all of the computer system here is still working right now, because we were able to work around that.
Any drainage issues that you guys have seen, stadium or over here?
Here's stadium, no. At Glynn Academy, there was some concern with drain issues early on. The drain that's over close to where the field house is now, that drain, the thatch material from cutting the existing field would gather. I don't know if you guys realize or not, but I coached football here back in 2000 to 2006. And I was one of the low guys on the totem pole. I had to go out there and walk around in knee deep, really, even higher, thigh deep water sometimes to find that drain and kick that thatch off of that drain. And when you did, you better watch out because it was like a whirlpool, you know. It would even drain then, and within 30 minutes to 45 minutes, we would have practice. But this is actually, it should help that situation, because now you're not going to have all that extra thatch material that accumulates over time and washes down to those drains. So the drain system does work. The field is actually, we've talked to Field Turf about creating the crown a little higher, so it's going to drain to those drains, and that thatch situation should be resolved with the field. So I think we should be in much better shape than we were before.
Awesome.
Okay?
Any other issues with any of the fields or anything like that? I thought I'd heard it may have shortened Glynn Academy's a little bit or something due to a tree, or was that just a rumor, or was that?
It's a little bit shorter, the oak tree, over by Shiloh, kind of in that area between the prep building and, the football field house. We can't remove that, so we had to shorten it. It's about 90 yards long, but, it's 90 usable yards now, which is good. The oak tree, the roots came out a pretty good way, so we had to be careful with that. We didn't want to get 10 years into the project and have roots popping up through the turf, so we just decided to proceed with caution and go a little shorter.
Don't want to take out an oak tree either. Could be worse.
Coach Hidalgo has lended his opinion on how the project should go, so that's helping out a lot too.
All right. I think that is the last slide for that, but the next item may be mine as well. Are we at the GOOD report? Yeah, actually, it's just that next one. Okay. I have the GOOD report in front of me. I'll just go ahead and give you some. Okay. Just give you some information. From what I've gathered in the last few meetings, there are a few things that are always the things that are addressed. One of those is our total receipts. We're right at, I think, $3 million for the month of June, and that's above the $2 million expectation, I guess, the line set that should be there. We continue to have the collections are high. And if you look at page 6, on page 6 it shows you those two bars right there kind of give you a good idea of the past year and this year, and how much more it is. It looks like it's a little over 300,000 all the way to your right hand. I mean, 300,000 to your right hand side there, and we continue to collect more than expected. And if you turn to page, I think it's 9 on there, Steve Salmon asked me to mention this as well. He said if you look at the top right-hand corner in the green area, there's 39.02% of projected has been collected. At this point, we should have collected less than 30%. So that kind of gives you an idea of the pace of collections right now. If this continues at the pace, we'll have collected well before the projected end of the collection period. Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Dinsdale or Mr. Waters?
I guess it's worth mentioning just on that point that this eSPLOS is set up differently than the eSPLOS 3 we had before that was for a time period. We've talked about this before, but this one is based on an amount collected. So if it doesn't hit if it's collected before the 5-year mark, then it ends in the quarter that we reach the goal. So we could be ending early time-wise.
Thank you, Mr. Dinsdale.
Thank you.
Dr. Green and Ms. Miller, Horizons Academy update.
Yeah, we just wanted to provide an update with where we are in the process of getting Horizons together for this upcoming school year. As you all know, there are 5 programs at Grizzly Annex, which is now called Horizons. And those programs are listed in this particular presentation. Morning Star remains the same. Glynn Learning Center remains the same, as well as Coastal Academy they all remain the same. The two new programs, Newcomer Academy and Bright Beginnings, are the ones that are a work in progress right now. Mr. Haywood has done a wonderful job of staffing the facility. There's currently one sped vacancy, and then we did actually have a bilingual teacher, but she opted out because of the salary, and so we're now searching for a bilingual teacher, but we do have a bilingual para and bilingual social worker who will be there to assist the students when the school year starts. That space is completely vacant, the newcomer space as well as the Bright Beginning space. If you go to the map, you'll see, and I actually have, if you can't see, I'm sorry, that little writing, I gave a handout for you all to view the layout of the facility. The space is a clear central registration is now at Altama as well as our SPED department. So they're at the old Altama now board office annex building. And so we're moving along. Ms. Miller and I are going to go to old Altama to look for furniture, so we're not purchasing any new furniture. Fingers crossed for the space. We believe we have enough furniture at old Altama to actually put in the classrooms. And the only thing that we will need to buy in addition to the curriculum resources of Promethean boards.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Mr. Griner, the financial report.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have before you the financials for the end of May. Let me get those pulled up. So the first page is the budget amendments. We only had one for the month of May. It was to decrease the math and science grant by $55,600. That's just based on the number of people who qualify for that particular grant. So of course this year we had less qualify, so that's why that number went down. And that tends to cycle through, so that's not unusual necessarily. I mean, it typically does go up, so but not unusual to see a decrease as well. On the next page is just a recap of the general fund. You see our revenues were at 98.5% at the end of May, so we'll definitely surpass 100% once we get June finalized. Expenditures, a little over 88%, actually 88.4%. We should be at roughly about 91.7 as of May, so we're under budget on expenditures and over on revenues, so that's very good on both of those. And again, that's all I had on the general fund. Just a couple of things on eSplice. We did close out eSplice 2. I think Mrs. Preston mentioned that we're basically through with eSplice 2. We did go ahead and do a transfer to close that out. It's about a little over $200-something thousand that we moved from the general fund capital projects to that just to close out eSplice 2. So now we just have eSplice 3 and 4 in the general fund capital projects where the money's been transferred over. So, just a little bookkeeping, housekeeping there. Mr. Dimsdale mentioned sales tax collections. Of course, what I have on here is the April, which was collected in May, and we were at about 2.9. Of course, we've already collected in June for May, which he mentioned as well. We were 14% higher in May, and he's mentioned we were almost at $3 million in June, which is May. So that trend continues to be positive. As he mentioned, I think in the cash flow we estimated $2 million, and I think Mr. Simon had mentioned we may want to look at revisiting that going forward on that cash flow report as well, because we're definitely hitting above $2 million. So we're scheduled to meet with Mr. Dimsdale and I in the next week or two just to kind of go through those cash flow reports a little bit. So, but I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have.
Any questions for Mr. Griner? All right, thank you. I'm going to call Mr. Dimsdale up here again because I should have left him up here in the first place. So classroom furniture.
Just item there where, of course, you saw the number of renovations that are going on. Well, there are 3 schools that need classroom furniture for those renovations, and these are the quotes for those schools. The way that we collect this is we give out to the administration a template that says, you know, these are the types of pieces of furniture that are needed for this environment. Let us know how many, and then the vendor can come and talk with each about colors and numbers and things like that. So that's how these quotes came about. There are quotes for Needwood, Oglethorpe Point, and also St. Simon's Elementary. St. Simon's, since it has a new media center, also has media center furniture in their order as well. The vendor is New Idea, which is who we used for a portion of all of the classroom furniture minus the teacher desks and the bookcases at Golden Isles, which have already been delivered and are already in place for this next school year. They're the only furniture provider that has delivered on time so far. This purchase will be done through the TIPS cooperative, which is a state-accepted cooperative purchasing group.
Do we know where their furniture is manufactured? Just out of curiosity.
The companies,
Their own.
Just
New Idea,
Right.
that they manufacture their own.
Okay.
and it's
Probably
from
why
South Carolina, right?
Yeah, they're from South Carolina, they manufacture their own
Okay,
furniture.
good. Maybe they can fix the roads, Marcus.
Maybe so. As you expand, diversify.
So the furniture, I know you mentioned, the Altama furniture being used at, one of the Horizons areas. But the furniture that's coming from these other schools, is that not really usable at this point, or do we cycle through warehousing?
Some is, and some ends up, right now it's gonna be used all, with this order, it'll be at least December before we get this furniture in. So that furniture is gonna be utilized all the time. The furniture that is still in good shape and we don't have anywhere to store it, you know, what we do is I'm relatively new to this process, so someone that knows the process,
Go ahead.
feel free to correct me. But what we'll do is we'll ask that those items be surplus, and then we'll place them on Gov Deals, and then we'll auction them off and see what we can get for them that way. Some we'll keep in stock so that we have replacement for wear and tear that happens normally for the others as well, but that's normally.
The nicer stuff we keep in our warehouse, or we keep them somewhere in stock so that principals can call and say, hey, I need 3 desks, I need 5 desks.
Right,
So, no, we don't just sell everything.
thank you.
Let's see, next, Mr. Dimsdale is, vehicles. Right there, it says Mr. Blackerby.
Right, yeah, and he did, a few days ago, we talked briefly about this. I think that this was presented to you guys a few months ago, and because of the changes in, gosh, I wish for some reason, there is a huge delay in vehicle purchasing. And I think it was brought to the group a few months ago, and now it's being re-brought to the group to approve again. Is there anyone else that has?
We've
any-
added some, so.
Okay, we've added a few
Mhm.
as well. Right now, we're still waiting on the maintenance trucks, and it's been 8 or 9 months, and they're not even in production yet. So this is something to get out in front of that supply chain issue, and that's what we're requesting.
Yeah, I think Ms. Siders had corresponded with us about this,
Did
that,
she?
yeah, they're actually available now, and I think that was the decision, we needed to bring it back before the board, so I think that was just
Thank you.
to kind of give an update. And as Dr. Spence said, we may have added, I can't remember.
We added the food and nutrition
Gotcha, yeah, that's what I
and
could
the
remember.
IT.
Availability is
That's the key.
that's the key.
They're
right?
available
Thank you
right
very
now.
much.
Yeah, yeah, so I think,
Any questions about the vehicles?
You have the funds for these?
The funds
Is
are
it general
coming.
fund, or is it?
that's,
It's on the first page.
Is it?
yeah, that's local capital projects.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and let me say this, I probably should have started the meeting like this. We're changing the way we're doing this, and so we're putting everything into the actual assembly platform rather than bringing attachments in. And so it should be a consistent format once we get used to it, where it starts off talking about how much, what the funds are, why we're doing it, and then an attachment with the bid. So we're trying to get some consistency there. Thank you, Mr. Dimsdale. That's it. All right. Divisive concepts policy.
So the divisive concepts policy stems from House Bill 1084, which is the Protect Students First Act, not the Divisive Concepts Act, which essentially prohibits school boards and administrators from discriminating based on race, and essentially protect students from lessons that make them feel guilty about their race. It specifies 9 divisive concepts that schools are to specifically avoid, and then in our particular device concepts complaint resolution policy that is, I'm hoping you all will waive our 30 days so that we can have it in place by our state deadline of August 1st and potentially pass or move forward with on July 26th board meeting. It essentially outlines our complaint resolution process that we're required to have. So if a complainant makes a complaint, whether that's to Dr. Spence, our superintendent, or to a school administrator, then it outlines the process that we will follow, which is the state process for handling those complaints. As you all know, any complainant can actually appeal directly to the state board for this particular policy or House bill, and then there are obviously some things that we would then have to present in the event that they do so. Also, with this policy and this law, a family or a complainant actually can request through open records evidence that supports or substantiates their claim if they believe that exists. So this is new for us, and we're actually going to prep our people to be in compliance. Ultimately, if we teach the Georgia Standards of Excellence, we can avoid and be in compliance with House Bill 1084.
Any questions? This is something we've talked about before, and we have to have it in place by August the 1st, so we are asking to waive the 30-day period and then vote on it
July 26th.
July 26th.
What's the repercussions for not?
That I don't know, because I will tell you this. They
Better do it or
they
else.
told us
What's your
this
else?
when we went to our first summer conference, and they said they would have a draft out for us. Well, we didn't get the draft until after the last board meeting, so we couldn't get it to you until now. And so the only thing they said to do was what we just did, ask for you guys to waive the time. But I don't know. I don't think they're gonna come down here and lock us up or anything. That's what you're asking.
Well, it's always a you better or else, but
Yeah.
I never say or else.
I just found it funny that they asked us to adopt a policy that we didn't find out about until July, when our next board meeting's in August. That had to be done by August 1st. Right. And Ms. Sims, you had asked about the 4E. Can you go down to 4E? I think did we change the
We
word?
didn't change it in this document just because it had already been
Okay.
published, but in the version that will be uploaded,
Right.
I put in parentheses, aligned to Georgia Standards of
Yeah,
Excellence.
so where it says prohibit, nothing in this policy shall be construed or applied to prohibit the discussion of divisive concepts as part of a larger course of instruction, we're gonna put in Georgia Standards of Excellence. So that means teach the Georgia Standards of Excellence.
Which
Not
is
some-
what Dr. Green was saying, if we do that, we
That's
shouldn't
right.
have
Right.
issues.
If we do what we've been doing the past 2 years, we should not have issues with this.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see. Dr. Gabriel. Oh, they're sitting there.
Well, this was just for a renewal of the Follett Destiny Library Manager that keeps track of all of this materials that we have in our schools. It's just for you all to be aware of it. It does not necessarily meet the $40,000 threshold for the board, but we wanted you all to be aware of what it was and that it is a large purchase that we are purchasing, but it manages all of our school system, pre-K through 12.
All right. Any questions there?
What is the funding source for this? Is just operations?
I would think that's general.
Yeah, that's just general fund.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
All right. Literacy update.
So, as the board is aware, this past year we did conduct a literacy audit. There should be a
Presentation.
PowerPoint on there. A literacy audit with our K through 8. And the main reason we did that is because we heard from our teachers and just going around and you can go to the next video. And just going around and being in our schools and seeing our teachers struggle with trying to meet our students' needs, especially since the pandemic, and trying to close the gaps. And one thing we found during the audit was that we definitely had some gaps with grammar. We definitely had some gaps with vocabulary as well as phonics instruction. And so we heard our teachers, we listened to our teachers, and we want to respond in a way that is positive for our students as well. So although our current program meets the needs of some of our learners, it's our job to make sure that all of our learners' needs are being met. And so without having to go and buy supplemental materials to try to meet those needs and try to close the gaps, we looked for all-inclusive programs that would encompass the needs of all students. So on the next slide, as you can see, the process that we took, we did issue an RFP, or request for proposals, and we screened the vendors for reputable vendors, and we also told the vendors exactly in the RFP exactly what our needs were, so that they could focus their presentations on exactly what our students' needs are. And so this past summer, we hosted a day of literacy for elementary school administrators as well as middle school administrators, and we reviewed 7 different content areas, 7 different curriculums, all related to literacy. And a scoring rubric was used, and then we selected, if you go to the next slide, for elementary, the recommendation was to go with benchmark workshop, which you can see includes readers, writers, phonics, word study, as well as professional development for our staff. That was really important to our building leaders, was making sure that our teachers have the supports they need going into a new implementation of a new program. One thing that Benchmark Workshop offered that some of the others did not was actual take-home booklets for each unit that the students do. They can actually take home stories and take home books of work that they've done. And that's one thing that our previous program did not allow. Parents didn't see a lot of work coming home in reading and writing because it just wasn't built this way. So this is one thing that will provide print in all of our students' homes. Print that they can read, print on their level that they can take home and be proud of. So each unit goes through that. So that's one positive for that. Our current classroom libraries that we've purchased over the past 8 years while we've been using our previous curriculum can be implemented with this. So the books that we've purchased, the little readers that the kids read in their classrooms, or the chapter books that they use, they can be used with this program as well. So, and then the middle schools, they selected Hope Mifflin model. It's called Into Literature. And it basically is a flexible instructional model. It's a little bit different for the middle schools, but it allows time in that period of the day for small group learning to take place, so that teachers can really focus in on individual needs of students, not trying to teach whole group for the whole 60 minutes of a period.
And one of the things that's definitely a positive about HMH Into Literature that I do need to highlight is Writable, the digital writing practice. It has AI built in where students can actually practice in school and out of school, but get feedback as soon as they start typing. You misspelled a word, the sentence doesn't make sense, check your subject verb agreement. Like it was extremely significant to the decision. And as you all know, in middle schools, we obviously have writing that's separate from reading, and we've had some critical issues and major deficits in the area of writing. So having Writable and having that digital writing practice is definitely going to be something that we believe will help close some gaps for our students in literacy.
And one other thing to add about both of the programs that were selected, they're both compatible with Google Classroom, which is our current online module that we use. If we ever had to go virtual, or for a flipped classroom effect where students are working at home, they can actually see each of these little books is available online, so parents can see it as well. So.
Any questions there?
I just see one of the bullet points there for the middle school program that says planning made simple for teachers. So I think that is helpful when we're rolling in a new program, but Dr. Green and Ms. Miller were nice enough to meet with some of us to show us some of the components of these modules, and I know kind of along the same lines, but for the elementary, they come in like these packets where the teacher can just remove the packet from the bundle of materials, and everything they need for a particular unit or a particular reading level, I don't know how it's organized, is there in the packet. So it just seems to me that that cuts down on the time of them going and trying to figure out what do I need for this, group, or what do I need for this lesson, that it's all there accessible pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good component of these selections as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So this will be district-wide, as far as it'll be a one,
K,
it'll, that way there's not one group doing this, another doing this.
The K-8.
K-8 and fully funded through CARES.
Okay.
And that's a 6-year.
Adoption.
Right.
And we chose 6-year because that's just the research, that's what research said, just appropriate for recycling the new curriculum and doing program evaluation.
So that'll go through the 6 years for this cost here, that's all inclusive
That's
of
it,
that, no
inclusive.
additionals.
It includes the training, the professional development, implementation, everything.
Consumables each year that you have to have. You don't have to pay for those when you reorder the next year's.
What's it replacing?
Units of study, our Lucy Calkins curriculum, K-8.
What's the proof of the data that you're gonna follow to see that it's working?
We'll use our map data for sure. We also have Achieve, that's another one of our metrics to show whether students are growing in Lexile, so we'll utilize that. And then we'll use our district formative assessments, our CFAs.
And something I've asked for in the past is to make sure that each year that when we do something like this, that they present the data, that you present the data and say, this program is working and this is why. It's something to me that kind of falls through the wayside at times, and I would like to see a little bit better follow-up on something like that.
Well, we know the other program is not working because we saw our test scores go down, and we heard our teachers when we went to visit the schools.
Mhm.
This was the #1 topic that we heard when we visited elementary and middle schools. That it's not working, we need to do something else. So,
just if you go-
One additional thing, Mr. Nadola, that we definitely like about this that I want to add before I forget is that we have more control of what's selected. One of the things that came from Lucy Calkins coming out of New York, much more liberal in some of the content and topics covered. With this, we get to select the topics, we get to remove and control from the district level, so have a little bit more provisions on what topics and what kids actually are exposed to. So we actually like that, obviously, with parents' right to know.
And I guess my thing is that program you were talking about before was the greatest thing in the world when it was presented. So that's my thing. We spent a lot of money on it, and it was the greatest thing going. And then we're replacing it with this, which is fine. I just want to make sure that there's research, data to prove that it's not any good. Get rid of it.
sometimes curriculum runs its course, also.
Yeah.
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 And Lucy Calkins herself has come out with research later that she's added a phonics program, and she's adding to her units and actually rewriting her units now. So it would be to purchase the new units anyway, when those come out, if we stuck with her. But we tried to listen to our teachers since they were the experts with the boots on the ground, and like Dr. Spence said, that was the #1 concern.
Definitely.
So that would be, all the teachers will be trained though. I mean, and that's the thing is, the curriculum's only as good as your teachers that are teaching it. And that's something with Read 180 and some of the other stuff over the years, and just having a kid that went through that, is you can have an A teacher and can get a D program to work. You can have a D teacher and an A program that doesn't work. So it's more, to me, is the training part should be the big
Yeah.
push on that.
Nothing can replace a good teacher in a
That's
classroom.
right.
There's nothing more
Nothing.
valuable than that, so.
Yeah.
All right. Dress code policy.
Good evening, everyone. This afternoon, we're asking the board to consider a policy revision to policy JCDB, student dress code. This request is twofold. It's to be responsive to the feedback, as Dr. Spence has already alluded with regard to literacy. This is one of the hot topics that was brought up in our school visits this past spring, and to provide a policy that is actually enforceable at the school level. So this draft policy revision was reviewed by students, it was also reviewed by teachers, and also our community engagement committee. wanting to make sure that we had stakeholder feedback. And so this just gives you a summary of some of the revisions that we've proposed for this policy. And then the second attachment is the actual draft that we'd like for you to consider, to lay on the table for 30 days, and then to vote on approving it at the August meeting. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions or provide any clarity for some of the changes. One of the major things we tried to condense it and make it more responsive to the trends of things that are happening now, and again, wanting to make sure we have something that we can actually enforce at the school level. And so if you gentlemen will open
Was bullet point 1, those like running shorts were not allowed?
That is correct. They were not allowed
Well,
prior to.
they were, right? I mean, so.
That's
like,
what
if
I
you
mean.
So are we wasting our time right now? And
Well,
I'm
that's what
asking
I'm
that
saying.
because if it wasn't allowed before, I mean, if you sit right here to pick up your child from high school, I mean, that's all that's worn, right? And not to pick on females out there, but I mean, these things are barely covering those shorts. You can't see what's on under whatever their top is.
Right,
And-
which is
and
why we
boys are
added-
doing it too. Boys
yeah.
are wearing stuff, in my opinion, is too short.
They are.
Too,
They are.
but, so my point is, you know, if you go all day and nobody says anything, then,
And I guess-
then we've gone through that. I've been doing,
Yeah.
you know, I've been doing this as long as some of you have, and it's just, if you're not going to enforce it, you're wasting your time. And
Exactly.
so I don't want to, you know, in another year, you're going to come back and say, I mean, I'm not saying don't change or don't try, but if somebody has something on inappropriate at 7:30 in the morning, they go all day before anybody says anything, then this, you know.
And honestly, Mr. Halsey, regardless of whether you all want to support this or not, that's going to always be an issue. What we were thinking, and especially from some of the feedback from schools, was that the current policy was difficult to enforce for the very reasons that you mentioned. Running shorts were prohibited, but every child you know had them on. And again, like to your point, nobody's correcting it. So if we're going to get back to the basics of school operations, one of those things is dress code, making sure that people have IDs so that you know who's in the building, making sure that their clothes are appropriate. So these were recommendations just so that we could have a policy that actually aligned to some of the new trends and something that schools could actually enforce. Because it's going to be enforced, at the classroom level with teachers and sending those students, if it's, a major issue, to administrations. We just didn't want to continue with something that we knew we were not able to enforce.
Is the second part of that sentence, one with appropriate length and bottom coverage, is that outlined in the policy, or is that
Yes, sir.
still up for, okay?
No, it's in the policy. So basically, if you wear running shorts, or if you have on tights or leggings, that your shirt should cover your bottom, your buttocks. It should cover your buttocks. And the other thing, to your point about shirts being longer than their bottoms, their shorts, that is also clarified that your shirt must not extend beyond your skirt or your shorts. You need to be able to see the student's shorts or bottoms, regardless of whether it's a skirt or shorts.
It's important to remember that our policy was written years ago, and the things that we're trying to enforce, if you have a teenage daughter, which I had too, those shorts that they buy, and they have long arms, and they hold their arms down, they're not gonna meet that fingertip thing.
100%. I mean, I don't.
And so
agree
we're
with
trying to
you.
develop something that is to the contemporary 2022 and try to work with our students. But we are trying to do something. Our teachers, again, during these meetings, ask us, are we gonna enforce the dress code policy?
Tell Blackstone to leave the cheerleaders alone, please. Read that again.
Well, I seem to recall when we came back in 2020, 2021, as far as dressing out for PE classes and things like that, we were trying to keep the children from being in locker rooms, and so there was a conscious relaxation of the dress code for that reason, and it's hard to pull that back in.
That's exactly
And so I think by changing the policy to kind of update based on what's available, in the stores for children, and but still yet find a balance in keeping it modest and
Yes, ma'am.
appropriate.
But I don't necessarily think, I don't want to argue this point, but I don't necessarily think a trend, just because it's a trend, makes it appropriate. Does that make sense? I mean,
No,
that's what we're
I
saying.
I
Okay,
totally agree with you.
So next year, if the shorts are shorter, you know, let's change policy again, because that's the trend.
Can't go any shorter, Mike.
That's the trend too.
We're there.
I'm not, this is like a cell phone policy, to be honest with you, I mean, whatever.
That's coming
but-
next too, so.
But, knock yourself out. I agree with all this, but I mean, you know, I'm just, I'm frustrated by the fact that we don't generally, you know, feel like we're all spinning our wheels if we're not gonna hold our principals and
Enforce it.
teachers accountable
Right.
for it, so.
That's why we're doing
And
this.
that's why we're doing
I
this.
hear you. but
That's
so
why
is
we're
it.
doing it.
I don't disagree with it, but I just saying,
And Ms. Sanders, also, the last 2 years, we have struggled to get kids to come to school.
Yep.
And they wanted to stay home because of COVID and all. We did everything we could, and if it meant relaxing things, we tried to get them in school. And that's something we did, so. So now it's time to get back to the basics.
khaki
and-
pants and polos, I mean, you know.
Remember this issue with Ariel?
Yes.
Who is
I
now a
think,
teacher, by the way?
I only have one comment, and it's kind of going off what Mr. Halsey said.
Actually, let me say something, this is funny, I'm sorry. There's a teacher at Glynn Middle that was a student of mine at Glynn Academy, and I'm not gonna name her name, but she asked about dress code. Now, I probably got on to her 50 times when she was in high school. She was the one that asked about dress code, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't wanna forget I'm getting older. Yeah.
The-
Just shows what it is.
My comment was just on, Mr. Halsey made a comment, kid makes it all the way to fifth period or fourth block, whatever it is, then they get sent. So I think it should be pushed back on the teachers as well. If someone gets a dress code violation in third block and they had the same thing on, then it should be handled inside the school before it's handled to the parent. In other words, it should go back to that homeroom teacher or whoever they've had before up to that point. That way there's consistency
Yes,
amongst
sir.
the whole group and they're working as a team at the schools instead of one or two that are hard, real hardcore and other ones that are loose. Maybe they can kind of start
Absolutely.
working together.
We agree.
Was there a reason why the homeroom teacher, the first block teacher weren't enforcing the dress code?
I think as Dr. Spence alluded, we were still
This
dealing
one
with,
won't count.
yeah, we just need to get kids in school.
No, but teachers are busy also.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
don't
I
always see
understand.
everything, and if that one person comes in and sits in the back of the room, they don't see that person. It's just like if you're speeding down Highway 341 and you go by Sonny's and there's a police officer and he doesn't catch you, but there's one down the next exit that catches you. Was it that police officer's fault the first time, but he missed it? I mean.
And you're right, but, but if we catch it in fourth block,
Right.
then they
How are we
need to
gonna
have the
enforce it?
same enforcement as if they would've caught it first block. So
Right.
if you catch it fourth block, you go home and change it. You catch it 7:30 in the morning, you go home and change it. Plus, they only have homeroom, once a week anyway? I mean, I know
At the
they
high
go to
school
it
level.
at high school, but,
I mean, it all
I use
becomes a
homeroom
management
for the-
it's
problem
just
within
like
the
this,
school
but it has to be firm, consistent, figure all that stuff. And we struggled with that a little bit last year, so we need to, if we're gonna apply that, we need to apply that same discipline principle to dress code.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. So, all right, any other questions about our dress code?
And teachers too.
The
I mean,
comments
because,
were-
teachers, and rightfully so, it got kind of like something.
We have addressed the teacher dress code also. so we're gonna
We have
review
done that as well.
Gotcha.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Swartz, low voltage network cables.
That's pretty straightforward here, nothing out of the ordinary. It's just for the new classroom building, St. Simon's Elementary. We had three people, vendors show up for the walkthrough, mandatory pre-bid walkthrough, and they did submit complete proposals. That's the bid tab right there. We're gonna go with, I recommend we go with Network Service Consultants. And that's for complete cabling, both floors, and that's going to be classroom data cabling, wireless network cabling for the wireless access point, security cabling for cameras, access control, and cabling for the intercom systems. A total of 433 drops, plus the fiber optic cabling to connect the two data closets.
Have we used the recommended vendor before?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And they are
We're
local.
satisfactory.
And they do very good work. They've been, done a lot of work for us over the years. Yes,
I'm just
ma'am.
looking at the bid amount difference and wondering.
I see it,
There's a
them a
reason.
lot, I think they've done.
Okay.
I see a lot of that, disparity like that. Some of these people come in and I don't know why the huge disparity, but yes, ma'am. I would not make that recommendation if I wasn't completely comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, they do have less, trouble less. They come 30 miles instead of 500.
Fuel costs.
Any questions, any other questions for Mr. Schwartz? Thank you, sir.
Yes.
All right, supply kits. You're about to see a big difference in bids.
Yeah.
Not nothing.
So, in an effort to relieve a little bit of financial stress from our parents, this year, using ESSER funds, we would like to be able to offer a basic school supply kit for every student in our district. So you can see some of the differences in the quotes, speaking of differences in quotes, but we did decide, if it's approved, to go with the first one, which was $145,899 for D&W source off. And in that supply kit, there would be, was the list attached to it? The supply list attached. But it's basically a pencil pouch, and in that pencil pouch, there's crayons for elementary kids, there's colored pencils, safety scissors, a glue stick, composition books, notebook paper, 2 packs of notebook paper, colored pencils, I think I said that, ruler, pocket folders, erasers, highlighters, index cards, and spiral notebooks. So it's just in an effort to relieve a little bit of financial stress off of parents. And all these would be packed into a pencil pouch for each student in our district and then distributed on the first day of school to the students.
And will we, refurbish the package throughout the school year?
We do that on a normal basis anyway when we buy supplies. So this would just be an initial packet for every student to have, so that parents wouldn't have to purchase these items at the first of the year.
90% of those items are found in our warehouse and principals. Most of them have pending orders anyway to restore this
To
stuff.
replenish it.
Yeah.
So given the different pricing levels, the recommended vendor comes from pretty far away this time. Have we seen samples of brands or the quality?
We did. She had heartburn
Okay.
about the crayons.
Okay, because there's a
So
difference.
we're gonna make
There's
sure
a
that we
difference.
get Crayola from the warehouse, but these kids will take the brand that comes.
They can
Yeah.
have,
Home.
the vendor, the D&W, they don't have Crayola crayons.
Okay.
They're a
That was
knockoff
the
brand, but, we will get Crayola crayons for the kids to have from our warehouse.
I just wanted to make sure,
Everything else
that
was-
wasn't where the savings
Yeah.
was, and,
We checked the brands. Everything else was the appropriate or recommended brand that we
Yeah.
wanted, with the exception of the crayon.
okay, that's good.
And our local supply was $200,000 more.
Yes,
Most 300.
that was the first bid that came in.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
There was a lot of positive feedback on social media about it.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. We
Yeah.
talked a lot about stuff, and it's not a big deal, but I saw it on Facebook, and it surprised me, because we hadn't talked about it unless I
Right.
just missed it. But I was kind of a little bit surprised it was so much positive feedback, and would be like, oh God, you're spending more money on this, but I've heard nothing but positive about it. And if I don't have to go to 10 different stores 2 days before school, I'm all for it.
I concur.
Mr. Deppenhart.
You know they're gonna want it next year too, though, so just get ready.
Well, we have CARES Act for next year.
Okay, well,
The year after that, we
the
don't.
third year.
But Staples,
Good evening. So, this particular item is actually below the $40,000 threshold, but Dr. Spence asked me to come here this evening and talk to you about it a little bit in case you had questions about the new program and the cost of the equipment. So, Dr. Spence and I spoke earlier this school year about standing up a new heavy equipment operator pathway at GICA. Very quickly, myself and Mr. Holland worked with Jeff Kicklighter and his team over at Seaboard Construction to come up with a plan. And one of the first things we're going to need to have is a simulator so that the students can train in operating both skid steer and hydraulic excavators, which are the 2 pieces of equipment that Seaboard is most interested in having, and they're going to allow our students to operate on their test site. So I actually went and operated some simulators at the GACTI conference this summer, and the one that I'm recommending for purchase is the one on the screen, not this one, it should be another page, unless that's the one Dr. Spence wants. Is it not opening up? Okay, this one here. This particular piece here is a desktop model. It comes in at $31,600. as opposed to the one you saw previously, which is roughly $47,400, I believe. So there's about a $15,500 difference between the two types of simulators. This particular simulator can be mounted to desks that we currently have in stock, and it's operated off of a typical computer hard drive with a 3-monitor set, pedals, and universal joysticks. The other simulator model with the chair that was shown previously actually gives a vibration and movement feedback as you're operating the hydraulics on the equipment. However, for the $15,000 extra, I think we're better off with this model here, because they're actually going to get that opportunity when they operate the real equipment over at Seaboard. And we're already offering the first classes of this pathway at the introductory level because it's part of the construction cluster, and we'll actually begin offering the advanced classes in the 23-24 school year. And that same year, graduate pathway completers to go into this industry, subject to your questions.
So at what point do they use this equipment? Is it from the very first class in the pathway, or is this more?
They will get introduced to it in the introductory level classes, and that's why we want to go ahead and get that this year, because in addition to being part of the curriculum, ma'am, it's also going to be a good recruitment tool for students that are in other pathways at GICA as they get the chance to operate this equipment. We're hoping to garner interest to bring more students into the heavy equipment pathway in 23-24.
So each class, are they taught in blocks, or is it a year long? So they could potentially take the first and second classes in
They
one
could
year?
in 1 year, yes, ma'am. It's
Okay.
semester-based. So a student coming in the fall of 23-24 would do occupational safety fundamentals and intro to construction. Then they would come back in the spring and do heavy equipment 1 and 2 and complete the pathway.
Okay, that's great.
Any other questions for Dr. Depp?
I'd like to say one thing.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to see this put in the paper somehow, I don't know how, but how that the school system tries to work with the community to teach our children how to do what they need them to do in our community.
Yes,
I mean, it's
sir.
a positive thing, it's the whole reason for GICA, but we don't sometimes advertise that enough. I don't know how we need to do it, but I'd love to see it.
Well,
This
when we
whole
actually-
process started from a community member contacting us about this, saying that they need folks to do this. And
Yes.
That's
Dr.
perfect.
Deppenhart found out that another school system is actually doing this, and so we went from there.
Yeah, Toombs County is actually already doing this. The school system I actually came from prior to coming here to be at GICA. So I've actually been up there to their campus with Mr. Holland from our construction program and actually viewed their classes being taught.
That's the way we want GICA to be. So we want to try to do this as many times as we can to work with our companies.
When we get the actual equipment on site, what we can probably do is get Mr. Kicklater from Seaboard over there and do some type of ribbon cutting ceremony and get that into the paper.
It'd be nice,
Press release.
because that's what we're doing. We're trying to, that's what GICA's all about. And so if we don't advertise it, and show the community this, and they go by, oh, that's at school. Instead they
Yes,
go,
sir.
oh, they're teaching for Seaboard. So I just like that, anyway.
Yes, sir.
Well, I
Chance to
appreciate
be
you
a
jumping
positive.
on it, when they contacted me about it this summer, with you jumping on it that quick to actually be able to enforce it, and be able to use it with, this upcoming year is great. And I agree with John, that's exactly what we were looking for out of the school system, so kudos to you, and I appreciate you being so proactive and, taking care of it.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
also like to thank, Mr. Kicklater and his crew at, and the whole business, at Seaboard Construction for being willing to back it. And actually, that's the kind of input that we're looking for the partners that we have out there, such as Gulfstream and the hospital and Sea Island and things of that nature. To really get behind that and put the money where the mouth is, and actually be able to say, hey, this is what we're looking for. And, it only helps them in the long run. But we can't do it without folks like you actually, putting boots on the ground and go to look at the stuff and actually put it in play. So thank you for your creativity and also obviously your willingness to be a part of it and go out there and find it, put the deal together and actually make it happen. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Val.
Thank you. Last, we have a capital outlay amendment. And so, back in 2019, when we did our capital outlay for Altima, we said we were going to build 41 classrooms, but in the end, we built 40 classrooms, and we turned one of those classrooms into a special education suite. We did that because the folks at Altima were used to having 2 special education suites. So basically, there's a classroom sitting there with a hole with a door that goes into the rest, another special education situation. So it's nothing, we're not gonna get in trouble, we just have to sign this piece of paper saying this is what we did. And so you guys have to vote on it, and then we have to sign it. All right. Thank you. And that is all I have, Mr. Mason.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Spence. All right, anybody want to review anything before we break out? All right, I'll entertain a motion to go in executive session for land, legal, personnel, and tribunal review.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Halsey, second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. At 6:06. open session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Yeager, second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous at 8:13.
It's 8 o'clock.
Is it?
Talking to Dr.
You're out
Spence.
of order, Ms. Gibbons.
I'm talking to Dr. Spence.
I'm out of
All right.
You're out of order.
All right. I'll entertain. What's that? All right, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sam, second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous at 8:13. All right, does anybody need to go to the restroom or anything? We jump straight into the regular meeting. Call the regular scheduled board meeting for July 12, 2022 to order. If you will please stand for the invocation, followed by pledge of allegiance by Mr. McDowell.
If you would, bow your heads. Thank you, Lord, for this day and keeping us together and helping us make good decisions, and be with us as we do try to make the decisions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. All right, that brings us down to spotlight by Ms. Tate. Nope,
No spotlight.
no spotlight.
I got something.
Sure.
Just kidding, let's go.
Go ahead. You take the podium? No?
I'm good. I'll save for next time.
All right. Table that. No citizens address the board? Damn, everybody just leaving us. All right, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Hosey,
Second.
second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Yes. Thank you. Consent agenda items. I'll preface by saying basically we just did everything an hour ago, so I'm gonna go through it and pretty much consent all of the items that we just spoke about. And
Except
then
for
you
the
can-
supply kits without the crayons.
Then you can add or delete as you feel necessary. I'm gonna add number 7, number 8, 9A and B, 9C, all of 9B, and we will leave 9E1 for approval. Unless y'all want to add that too.
You can consent it if anybody has any issues with it. If not, we can consent it.
I have no problem sending.
Don't make me seals, man. She's been waiting. All right, well, I'll add 9E1.
Is it appropriate, Mr. Mansell, to add the workers' comp settlement as discussed in executive session? Can we go ahead and add that, or do we need to wait until after 10?
Do you need a vote on that? Yeah, we need a vote on it, so well, I guess.
On the top?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could add it.
so we'll have to actually,
Just
Bring it
add
up.
it as another.
okay.
You can amend the,
So we're gonna have to amend it and add it.
No, we don't.
Or
And
we
we
can
always
step
approve,
out.
we always approve those, and they're never on the
Approve it
agenda.
in
I'm
the
saying
consent.
just throw it in there. I think it's
Can we put
okay.
it on the consent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you need to
Okay.
amend the agenda, because it's never on the agenda anyway.
You can put it
Yeah.
on the
Okay.
consent.
Yeah, but normally we bring it to a vote though.
Yeah, we'll still vote on the consent, unless y'all want to drop it down to 10.
That's what I'm
that's fine.
saying, you can't, how you gonna consent something that's not on the agenda?
How you going to vote on something that's not on the agenda?
Because we bring it to a motion and we vote on it.
That's what we're doing, it's the same motion.
There ain't no motion.
There's about to be.
Okay, well, where's it at? How can I
Just
consent
move it,
it?
just move it to 10A.
Who's on first?
Not Jerry, workers' comp settlement.
All right. Let me read them back.
No,
No?
nope.
Everybody's good?
Everybody can read. We got this new program, everybody can read now.
Mike's hungry, he's gotta go eat. And y'all voted for him again. Voted for him again.
Huh?
Unbelievable. 4 more years.
Yep, you got, you're stuck.
Lucky us.
Unless I move.
All right, well, I will entertain a motion for consent agenda items as presented.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Hosey,
Second.
Thank you.
second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Brings us down to, well, do you have a motion, Mr. Hosey?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the workers' comp settlement as discussed in the executive session.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Hosey, second by Mr. Mandela. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Move we adjourn.
We don't bring that up.
That's all handled out.
Yeah. Okay. Motion by, Mr. Hosey for adjournment. I hear a second.
I'll second.
Second. Can we
You
second?
missed it 3 times.
Gibbons, yeah.
Ms. Sands, second.
Oh,
Any
she did
discussion?
good. Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous at 8:19.